So if visiting Italy is on your bucket list, here are 10 things you need to know before you go. Going to Italy was a long-time dream of mine, and maybe it is of yours. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. There's so much architecture and history, ancient ruins, thousand-year-old castles, museums, beaches, or, maybe you just love the mountains. And of course, there's incredible food. It really boggles the mind. Trust me, when you're there, it's almost like you're in a dream. I mean, it is that beautiful. So here are a few things you need to know before you go if you want to make your trip to Italy the best it can be. Number one, language. Italian is the official language, of course, but regional dialects are also common, and apps like Google Translate or other apps can be handy. But learning just a few words of the language before you go can really go a long way with the locals. Greetings like buongiorno, which means good morning, or buonasera, which means good afternoon or good evening. They're a polite way to start a conversation by saying that. Grazie is thank you. Prego is you're welcome. Mia scusa is excuse me, or you can just say excusa. Dove is where. So if you want to know where San Giorgio is, it's not perfect Italian, but you can say Dove San Giorgio, and they'll know what you're talking about. Listen, a few words go a long way with the locals. They really appreciate it when you reach out and try to speak their language. And of course, as you go, you're going to pick up other words along the way. Now, in larger cities, many people and most store attendants speak English, at least some English, enough to get you by. Now, in smaller towns, though, that's not really so, but they will try. They'll use their hands, and with your English and broken Italian and their Italian and broken English, you'll eventually figure it out. I remember in one small Italian village, having this conversation with a guy who spoke about that much English, and I spoke about that much Italian. But you know what? We figured it out, and we were able to communicate with each other. But like I said, there's always Google Translate. Download it. Listen, it's gonna be your best friend when you travel. Now, if you have another app you like to use, leave a comment below so everyone else can check it out, and maybe that'll become their new favorite travel translation app. Number two, currency. Now, most places accept credit cards. So before you go, make sure you have a credit card that specifically is for travel, because those cards don't charge you international transaction fees. Plus, hey, you can earn points that you can use toward hotels and other things, and those points really add up, and they can make a real difference in your travels. For instance, we're soon going to Munich, Germany, and we are paying for our entire hotel stay for 2 weeks off of points. So it's well worth it. Now, while credit cards are accepted in larger cities, if you head out to explore some of the smaller towns around the area or smaller villages, you're probably going to need to have some cash on hand because, well, they may not accept credit cards. Also, in some of the larger towns, in the off-the-beaten-path, smaller stores, well, they may not accept credit cards either. So it's always nice just to have a few euros tucked away just in case. Now, when you get your cash, don't get it at the airport. They're going to give you a horrible exchange rate. Also, some standalone ATMs, they're going to give you exorbitant, you're going to find exorbitant transaction fees. So what you want to try to do is use a bank ATM. All right, bank ATMs give you a much, much better transaction fee. Also, when you use an ATM or a clerk at a store asks you if you want them to convert your currency, say No. When it comes up the ATM, do you want us to convert your currency? Hit the no button. Let your bank convert the currency because you're going to get a whole lot better conversion rate. Also, before you head overseas, it's a good idea to check with your bank about international ATM and transaction fees. Now, Charles Schwab has an account that you can fund and you can get an ATM card and they reimburse you ATM fees. Of course, you need to check with Charles Schwab and you need to check with your bank to make sure on the fees. Number 3, you need to understand transportation. Now, larger Italian cities tend to have great public transportation. I was recently in Milan and you could get anywhere by public transit. It was amazing. And for the most part, it was very clean and it was always very safe. Depending on the larger city you're in, you may need to buy a bus or subway, streetcar, or train ticket before you get on board. You can buy those at ticket kiosks, or if you're in a smaller town, a tobacco shop or some other small shop close to the train station or the bus station or whatever will sell tickets. However, some buses and such allow you to tap a credit card on a card reader as you get on the bus or after you're on the bus or streetcar, train, or whatever. And then as you exit, you just tap your credit card again and they charge you the proper amount. But sometimes tickets are cheaper if you buy them before boarding. Like if a train system or the city has an app, you may get a cheaper ticket if you do that. Now, if you're going to be in a town or a city for a while, and you're planning on using public transit, you might want to do just a bit of research and see if you can purchase a travel pass for X number of days. A lot of cities offer that. And oftentimes they offer weekly and monthly passes. It's cheaper and it's much more convenient. Number 4, local customs. Italy's a bit more conservative when it comes to traditions, faith, and family. Now, they hold on to these things because they see them as a connection to the past and as a source of stability not only in the present, but also in the future. So, for instance, when you go into a church, both men and women have to take off their hats. They see that as disrespectful. And women, you need to make sure that your shoulders are covered because, again, modesty is prized in the churches. In addition, both men and women have to make sure that their shorts or the skirt that they're wearing goes over the top of their knees, that their knees don't show. And there's usually someone inside who will enforce these rules. So you have to realize that, you gotta take their traditions seriously. Now, if you're going to visit southern Italy, there are a few cultural taboos to keep in mind. Don't speak ill of family. Family is sacred. Don't be disrespectful to older people. That is a huge no-no. Don't criticize religion. It's considered rude and disrespectful. Don't go all out in the PDA department, all right? Public displays of affection are seen as inappropriate. Finally, don't talk about the mafia-related things. Don't bring that up. That's a pretty sensitive topic for Southern Italians. Now, as far as Northern Italy, don't be flashy with your money, all right? Don't show off wealth. That's considered tacky. Don't be late. In Northern Italy, punctuality is seen as an act of respect. And finally, don't be overly familiar with strangers. Be polite, or you'll be seen as rude. Now, across Italy, using your cell phone during a meal or coffee time, well, you know what? That's just seen as rude. People just don't do that. That's just considered disrespectful of the people that you're with. Number 5, let's talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is food. Meals are really social affairs for Italians. They love their food, they love to cook their food, and they love to share their food. Now, when you eat, you don't rush through a meal. All right, you take time and you savor each course. You savor the flavors. You savor the fun and the friendship and the family that is around you. You have conversation and you laugh. Don't rush through a meal. After all, the restaurant won't rush you. Yeah, you can relax and enjoy your meal. They're not going to try to push you out just so they can get another table turn, kind of like they do in America. All right. Now, most meals are broken down into antipasto, or the appetizer, and then there's the main course, and you'll really want to enjoy that because I'm telling you, the food is absolutely delicious. And finally comes the dessert, and again, they are delicious. Now, Italians usually finish their meal with coffee, an espresso, because they believe that strong espresso will help with the digestion of their food. Now, if you want an iced coffee or something of that sort, well, you'll most often have to get that at a coffee shop. Okay? Now, realize servers tend not to come to the table. It's not because they're trying to be rude or that they just don't care. But the reality is they don't want to interrupt your meal because mealtime is sacred time. But feel free to wave your server down and then ask for whatever it is you need. Also, be aware, water is hardly ever free in Italy. It comes in a bottle and you have to specify whether you want acqua naturale or acqua frizzante. Now, the naturale is just regular old water. But the frizzante, well, that's water that has been carbonated, okay? So in addition, they may bring you some bread as you sit down. Now, it may come with the meal, or it may cost you. So don't be afraid to ask. It's okay. Now, when the meal has ended, you need to ask for the ticket. Most often, they're not going to bring the ticket to your table in advance because they don't want to pressure you. In addition, most often, you do not pay your server. You go inside to pay. And of course, that again is they don't want to pressure you. Also, food varies greatly between regions, so make sure you take the time to explore local specialties or you're going to miss some incredible food, all right? I like to ask the server their top 2 or 3 favorite dishes, not their recommendations, but their personal favorite dishes. Then I order from there. Finally, tipping is not expected. Tipping culture is not a thing in Italy, but if your server did an excellent job and you want to say thank you, well, then a 10% tip would be appropriate and appreciated. Number 6, sightseeing do's and don'ts. Now, one of the key to making your sightseeing experience a lot easier and quicker is do buy your tickets to specific sites that you want to see before you go by buying them online. Now, most popular sites offer this service. Also, if you're really interested in a particular site, do consider a guided tour for a more in-depth experience. But if it's something that you're not really interested in, I mean, it's a cool site to see, but you don't necessarily want to learn all the ins and outs of it, hey, you don't have to worry about that. Most often they're going to have self-guided tours, or they'll have signs available that you can take a look at, and they'll have plenty of information on them. Again, remember, if you're going to take in any of the ancient churches, and they are beautiful, you really need to check them out. Or if you're going to, say, Vatican museums in Rome, as I mentioned earlier, do check their specific dress codes. No bare shoulders or shorts above the knees, or men or women, wearing hats, anything to that effect. The next is, don't think you're special and can ignore this rule. You can't. They will call you on it. Plus, you want to respect their traditions and their values. And of course, you may get asked to leave. And if you do, don't expect a refund. Italians expect you to know and keep the rules. Finally, when you're out and about, do remember, it is a competition between the pedestrians, the scooters, the bikes, the cars, and the trucks. They drive fast, and unless you're crossing a designated crosswalk, you're really taking your life in your own hands. I mean, you've seriously got to be careful, especially in smaller towns, because sometimes there's no sidewalks. In fact, most often in smaller towns, there are no sidewalks. And sometimes those streets are literally no more than 10 or 12 feet wide. So when you're walking, sometimes you'll have to kind of turn when a vehicle goes by, or if they're stopped at a stop sign, you'll have to turn a little bit to get past the vehicle. So be careful, okay? Use common sense and you'll be okay. Number 7, safety. Now, for the most part, Italy's a very safe country. I never felt unsafe when I was there, no matter what time of day I was out and about. Now, kind of like traffic, you do have to use common sense and keep an eye on your belongings in crowded areas and use reputable taxi services or rideshare services. Don't walk around showing off expensive items, and do be cautious in areas known for pickpocketing. You'll want to check this out before going. Now, I use a fanny pack and I keep it in the front, and I keep it under my shirt. Also, I put a lock on the zippers of my backpack so that folks just can't get in there and kind of unzip it and grab something while I'm not paying attention. In addition, I would highly recommend you get an RFID credit card holder, okay? That'll keep your card safe from card readers. And guys, carry your wallet in your front pocket. Now, if you'd like a list of all the items that we use when we travel, including these credit card holders or camera gear or the clothing we wear, there's a link below that you can check out. And there's a whole list of items. It's an Amazon list. And if you click it and buy, we get a small commission, but it doesn't do anything to raise the price that you pay. Number 8, Italian culture. This is rich. Remember, Italians value social interaction. So do make eye contact. Don't sit there and talk to somebody like this with your head down, or looking over there, or looking over there, or looking at your phone while you're talking to people. Don't talk to somebody while you're doing that, because they consider it rude and disrespectful. I remember having a conversation with 2 young men in an Italian city I was in. And they started the conversation and we began to talk. And as soon as we began to talk, their cell phones went away. They weren't going to look at them while they were visiting with me. It was really kind of a refreshing change, considering so often in America you sit down to eat with people and this is what you see. You know, it was really kind of nice to be able to sit down and eat a meal without having to worry about that. In formal settings, or when you're introduced to someone, a handshake is typical. But if you're with someone who may consider you a friend or kind of part of the family, well, they may come in to kiss the cheek. That's not uncommon. So relax and go with the flow, all right? That's not saying you have to kiss someone on their cheek, but if they embrace you and go in for the kiss, well, you know what? Just make a kiss sound. And you'll be okay. They only do it because they're showing a friendly affection, all right? They look at you and they see you as someone special or as kind of part of the family. So just go along with it, and guys, relax, don't worry about it. Finally, with regard to culture, do realize, all right, Italians tend to eat dinner later in the evening. It's not unusual for them to get together at 7 or even 8 o'clock and begin dinner. So you just realize it's not an early dinner. It tends to be a late dinner in Italy. Number 9, business hours. Now, as Americans or people from around other parts of the world that aren't used to this, this is probably one of the hardest don'ts of Italy. And that is, don't expect stores to be open all day. All right? A lot of businesses, including many grocery stores and restaurants, close for a few hours during the afternoon for a riposo. It's a time of rest or an extended lunch. And they enjoy it. They embrace it. And usually it's between 1 and 4 or 2 and 5. So realize, Italians aren't in a hurry. They may get back at 5 o'clock or at maybe 5:15 in this case. So when it's riposo, they're going to take their time. It's the ultimate work-life balance, folks. So make sure you do plan your activities around those hours. Plus, do think ahead when you're getting the things that you may need. In smaller towns, businesses often close earlier than you may be used to. And some pubs in towns also may close earlier than you're used to. So just kind of check it out so you can be aware. Number 10, your health. Do check if you need vaccinations or boosters before traveling, all right? You're going to usually be okay in most European countries, but check just to make sure. On my last visit to Italy, there was none required. We're going to Germany this fall. There's nothing required. But it's always a good idea to check. Now, you can find this information on the CDC website, or your local doctor will have access to that information, and they can tell you if you need any vaccinations or boosters. Now, if you take prescription medication, do bring enough for your trip. Now, it's best to carry medication in their original prescription bottle. All right, that can just save you some headaches if customs decides to start asking questions. I haven't had any problems, but it's just a precaution. Some folks even carry their prescription. Now, if you're on a prescription that's considered a controlled substance, you need to check to see how much the country will allow you to bring in before you go. Finally, there are plenty of pharmacies, even in small towns, and they usually have at least one staff member that speaks English. Plus, you can get some medications that are prescription in America over the counter in Italy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed our list of 10 things you need to know before you go to Italy. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up, because that tells YouTube to spread this video to more travelers. We'd appreciate that. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again next week. Arrivederci, or ciao.